He is self-described as the Rush Limbaugh of the left. So it's fun to have Tony Michaels from the Tony Michaels podcast joining us back on the program. Tony, good to see you back on, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. I'm a little frustrated with this Sebastian Gorka pick, as I am with just about every Donald Trump appointee. Let me start with just that. Do I have it right? I mean, this guy's a racist, a bigot, unqualified, but he coddles the tail of Donald Trump. What do you make of this pick?
Well, snowflake comes to mind. That's one word. I've got a lot of other words that I probably can't say on here. But I will say this, that I have a little history with Seb. I was in a Mario in the fall. I don't know if you guys have heard Mario.
Yeah, I've done some of his spaces. Yep.
Yeah, I was in a Twitter space, and it was I think it was the day after Trump had been indicted in New York, where he was convicted on 34 felonies. It was the day after, and Tom Fenton, the guy who wears his little sister's shirt, and Seb Gorka was in the Twitter space, and they were making excuses about why Trump hadn't done the crimes that he'd been charged with, and now we know he was convicted of them. I don't know if he'll ever be sentenced. Who knows if we'll get that to come to pass. But Seb was very upset when I came in the room because I said words to him, words that offended him. Maybe some of the words that I can't use on this show here today. But Seb and Tom Fenton blocked me immediately. They left the room. They ended up coming back. My co-host at the time, Gabe Sanchez, had said a few things. And so they and Seb does this thing a lot. He doesn't know who you are. He doesn't know who you are because you're unimportant to him. And you're a cretin is what he says. You're a cretin. So Seb is a world-class snowflake. He'll remain a world-class snowflake. And I just think it's kind of funny that MAGA would be excited that a foreigner would be the director of our counterterrorism group.
I think it's absurd. It's pathetic. We can go down the list. Do I believe that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset? Yes, I do. She has refused to this day, really, to call out Assad for anything, has said on the record that she doesn't believe Assad is a threat to the United States of America. Let's be clear. Assad has been a threat to the world. Again, another evil, murderous dictator. Vladimir Putin, another name that comes to mind. There's a reason why Russia was celebrating, and those in the Kremlin were celebrating when they found out that she was going to be in Trump's administration. Do you think that it gets through, and do you feel like she will be appointed to this position officially?
I hope Trump gets a lot of his picks, and the reason why I hope he gets a lot of his picks, and I know a lot of people might mind me saying that, but I think there is a point where we have to touch the hot stove here. It is a thing we have to do. We have to let America know that there are consequences to elections, and I believe that Democrats really shouldn't save Republicans. They should let them fight this out in the Senate, because that's where a lot of this battle is going to happen. But if you've been paying attention the last few days, it feels like there's a lot of Republican senators who are much more interested in their own power and their own seat than they are, coddling Donald Trump or trying to make him make better decisions. Trump is definitely not going to make better decisions just because Republicans get a little upset and they vote against his nominees. But here's the thing: is that it's pretty obvious that Donald Trump is scraping at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, this is like this is like the Florida gang of criminals in his administration. The only people that he can go to nominate are people from Florida, it seems like, I think at the end of the day, there's not a lot of people that really want to work with this administration, and they don't want their name on the list of people who helped destroy American democracy.
It is interesting what you say there about, we might have to touch the hot stove, reference, an analogy to, we know that these are terrible people, that we know that they're not good for the country, but some of the people in this country are so stupid, they don't realize what we've got ourselves into. So I think that's a valid point that you make. Obviously, we don't want to root for the country to things to go south, but I think it's actually inevitable with some of the people that he has picked. Most of the people, by the way, that he has picked. I think we're in some trouble. What do you make? Speaking of that, what do you make of Matt Gaetz? Thank God he's not going to be anywhere near the Attorney General.
Who? You mean the guy on Cameo? He's a Cameo star. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was just going to ask you next. What do you make of the rise and fall of this guy? Where we know that who his father was and how he got to where he is. White privilege is the word that I would use. I don't think Matt Gaetz is the smart guy that everybody makes him out to be. But with that being said, what do you make of the fact now that this guy is on Cameo? I mean, we've still heard some rumblings from some that he wants to be the next governor of Florida. I don't think, I don't know. I guess you never know. With the people that they elect in Florida, like the Ted Cruzes of the world, I guess you never know. But where do you see this going with Matt Gaetz? And do you think he'll ever hold office ever again?
Well, I'm just glad that now that Matt Gaetz has resigned his seat as a congressman and he withdrew his name for attorney general, I'm seeing he's made a full transition to be George Santos on Cameo. He's
Right.
he's trans MAGA now is what Matt Gaetz is. I call him Matt Gaetz, and I do that intentionally because I figure if he ever hears me say it, that make him mad. So I want to make sure that I every time I say his name, it's wrong.
Can I ask you something though?
Yeah.
Like I think what we should all do with Matt Gaetz, and I'm going to call him that now too. By the way.
Sure. Go ahead.
I think we should all pool a little bit of money together. He's charging $550 for a brief cameo. And I was thinking of like writing something out for him to read, kind of an inspirational story. And I was thinking in my head, what would we have him say? I would go along the lines of, I'd have him be speaking to me. I'd say, hey, Brian, I love your radio show. Don't worry about all those DUIs you got, because I heard your dad's in very powerful positions and he'll get you out of them. You'll get that slap on the wrist. So don't worry about it. Your dad will help you. And listen, don't worry about those alleged charges that you made on some accounts, paying some people for favors. I wouldn't say sexual favors because he would never read that. For favors. Like I think we should all like pull some money together and maybe have him read something like that. That's what
I'm sure he would do it for money. He'd do just about anything for money. Nepo baby McForehead over there. So I mean, that's the other thing. It's pretty clear is that we are about to embark on a situation here where oligarchs have taken over our government. Oligarchs are going to control just deep facets of our country and have the hands on the levers and the gears of power. And I don't think people are really prepared for that because, these things like Matt Gaetz withdrawing and not being a member of Congress, like who really gives a crap? Yeah. Really, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, it's great that he's out of Congress, so he's not sitting, but he wasn't doing anything anyways. Matt Gaetz wasn't doing anything.
He never passed one bill, and he's got money. He comes from a wealthy family. He can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. So I want to talk a little bit about Nancy Mace for a moment. I put out a video on social media. You can tell me if you think I'm out of line here. Listen, hear me out on this one. So as you know, basically every interview Nancy Mace does, she talks about how she was the victim of rape when she was 16 years old. Now, listen, most people like myself, and I'm sure you would be included in this, is that if a woman or anybody says they're the victim of a very serious crime, in this case, rape, we tend to believe them. Like back in the day when that Jussie Smollett story came out, that's a different situation. But I believed him. And then when the evidence came out, okay, well, he made it up and he should be in jail. But we tend, as an Americans that are decent people, we tend to believe people. But here's my problem with Nancy Mace, right? And here's why I think we should start questioning her, whether she was raped or not.
Sure.
Because there are 25 women that have come forward that have alleged that Donald Trump raped or sexually abused them, including his ex-wife in court documents. And we know that E. Jean Carroll, he was found liable for sexual abuse. Now, Nancy Mace has defamed her and said that she's a liar. And what about all the other 25 women? I guess Nancy Mace thinks that they're all lying as well because she supports Donald Trump. So I think we should start doing the same thing to her. So here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Besides that, and I want to get your thoughts on that. What do you think? How do you think Republicans or somebody like Nancy Mace would react if her alleged, and I'm going to use the term alleged because I don't even know if it's true or not, man who raped her ran for office, and then Democrats across the land supported that man who allegedly raped Nancy Mace? Now, I'm sure she wouldn't take too kindly to that, but that's exactly what Nancy Mace is doing with E. Jean Carroll and all these other alleged victims that claim that Trump raped them. I think we should start questioning Nancy Mace. I think we should start questioning her. Where's the police report? Where's the case? Was there was it proven in a courtroom? I think we should start doing the same thing with her. Every time she starts claiming she was raped, we should start questioning her because that's exactly what she's doing to E. Jean Carroll and all these other women. What are your thoughts?
I guess my only response to that is maybe Nancy Mace would vote for him.
Yeah.
Maybe
That's
Nancy votes. Maybe Nancy Mace would vote for him. It seems that she has high support. Now, Nancy Mace was one of the ones who actually voted to certify against Donald Trump's will on the floor. And then when she needed his help in her congressional race and she needed his supporters in congressional race, she genuflected. And she put on, I think you said the Trump knee pads. I call them the Cheeto dust knee pads. I call them the Cheeto dust knee pads. So, but if the logic is true, that about Kamala Harris, what we were told from MAGA is the things she had to do and the jobs she had to give to be attorney general and to be the vice president of the United States. Why are we assuming that Nancy Mace didn't do the same thing to get the endorsement from Donald Trump? Why are we assuming that a woman like Nancy Mace wouldn't have done certain things that a woman has to do to get in the room of power? If that's the logic that we have to use, we should be questioning all these things. Yes,
I think that's a very valid point. And I'm just going to call out Nancy Mace every time. She's the one, and not because I don't even believe her, right? When she says she was sexually abused, to be fair, I have no reason to not believe her, but I think we should do the same thing. People can call it vindictive if they want to. We should do the same thing to Nancy Mace and treat her the same way that she's treated E. Jean Carroll and all the other women that have come forward that have claimed that Trump raped them. Where's the police report? Was it proven in a court of law? Was he found liable of sexual abuse? Maybe we should ask that person to run for office. I mean, I'm serious. If I was interviewing Nancy Mace right now, if she wants to say I'm victim shaming her, she can go to hell as far as I'm concerned, because she did that to E. Jean Carroll and she's done that to all these other women. But getting to the transgender topic, I know we had a very long discussion about transgenders in sports, which I don't want to do today. That's not why I'm bringing this up, but I do want to bring in the bathroom situation, which I do think we are going to agree on this issue. And it's totally okay if we don't agree on issues, but I find it very interesting that Nancy Mace has tweeted over 200 times, and she's so proud of herself because a transgender woman who she works with can't go in the woman's restroom. This is the part of the argument that I don't understand. So they say it makes them uncomfortable. Well, guess what? There's a lot of things that make people uncomfortable. Too bad. Get over it. I don't care. When I go into a restroom, I'm not looking around to see, does that person have a penis? Does that person? No, I don't, because I don't care. I go in there and I do my thing and I leave. And the idea that most women that I talk to, the idea that they go in there and they're looking around to see if there's a transgender is absurd. That's number one. And number two, there is no evidence, and this is the part that gets me really angry. There's no evidence to support the fact that transgenders are more culpable of committing crimes in restrooms than anybody else. But yet they make it sound like somebody will get the snip just so they can go into a restroom and commit an assault. It's so ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. But anyway, she'll tweet out hundreds of times about this, right? She's so proud of herself. She's such a patriot. Yet after the Uvalde, Texas school shooting, and after a school shooting when a bunch of innocent children are killed, she'll put out one tweet, and that one tweet will say thoughts and prayers. So, I think she's a despicable person, but I just think it's grandstanding. She's selling shirts and making money off this. What are your thoughts on this, and do you agree?
Well, I guess if I had to ask Nancy Mace one question, and if she's listening or someone can get this message to her, I would ask, what does one congressperson, Sarah McBride's genitalia have to do with the price of eggs? That's what I would ask. Mm-hmm. That's what I would ask. And I think, more broadly, I think that should be our response to any of this stuff where they're trying to bait, the country into a conversation. I mean, really, honestly, who asked Sarah McBride? Why didn't someone go ask Sarah McBride? Maybe she wants to go post up at the urinal in the men's restroom. Did we ask her opinion? Did we ask her? Did Nancy Mace ask her? Maybe she's willing to go take a leak, as if anyone cares where she takes a leak. What if Sarah McBride is willing to go take a leak in the men's room if that just means she can do her job and represent the people of Delaware like she was elected to do?
Right. I think that's a good point. I just don't understand, again, as I call them, like Nancy Mace, a noisemaker, not a real lawmaker. And I look at all these MAGA Republicans that are supporting Nancy Mace, and listen, they disgust me, but they call her some sort of patriot or some sort of champion. And it seems like if you want to be in that MAGA base, the core MAGA supporters, you have to be transphobic. You probably have to be a bigot in one way or another. I guess the two go hand in hand there. Attack the LGBTQ community, attack trans people. We can have discussions about whether we think trans people should be in sports or not. We've had that debate. We disagree on that. But at the same time, it just seems like it's a prerequisite if you allegedly sexually abuse somebody, if you impregnate a woman while you're married to another woman, if you have a diary with all the writings, which is weird in itself, of how many times you've cheated on your wife and then she sadly commits suicide. It seems like it's a prerequisite if you're going to surround yourself with Donald Trump. You know, there was a picture that went viral that I put up. It's a picture, Tony, of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Donald Trump, and Dana White at the UFC fights a few weeks ago. So I put up the picture and I said, you know, one of these people has a diary cheating on his, at the time, wife. She read the diary and committed suicide. He's self-admitted that he was an adulterer. And then you have another guy in Dana White who was seen on video, as you know, smacking his wife in the face. And then, of course, Donald Trump, who's a liable sexual abuser. And they want to try to convince America, or at least Donald Trump has tried to convince America, that he's a protector of women. These are the people he hangs out with. These are the people that are going to be in the Trump administration. Is there any semi-intelligent woman out there that thinks these people in his administration are going to protect women?
This is why they tried to bait us into these fights about bathrooms, because they know they'll lose those other debates. They know they'll lose them. So they try to get us into these conversations about bathrooms and who's got what genitalia and what genitalia is allowed where, and you know, who's going to grab who's it's craziness. And I want to say here, if I've got just a minute,
Sure.
As a country, we need a new brand of liberalism. The problem with our politics isn't about Republican or Democrat. We have a two-party system of government, but we are not a two-party society. Our problem is that the media is no longer willing to do the work of the free press, and the influencers that we have on the left don't even attempt to appeal to the working class at all. We are going to face tough challenges in the next year when the ruling oligarchs like Trump, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance's handler, Peter Thiel, start to loot our federal budget. And the best we will have is some old hat cancel culture leftists like Harry Siston, Brian Tyler Cohen, and David Pakman. To make it even worse, we have to sit and listen to the pretentious punks like Destiny and the Middle East MAGA sympathizers like Hassan Piker devolve in their sissy little catfights that have nothing to do with the problem most folks in America face. All the while, we get baited into ridiculous arguments from the right wing MAGA over which bathroom folks are gonna use. And again, if I had to ask Nancy Mace one question to her face, and if any media out there has any credibility left, they would ask Nancy Mace once and for all, what does one congressperson's genitalia have to do with the price of eggs? And we need to get back to the working class and talking about the issues at the working class and not be baited by these things and not be baited by the left, because the left does the same thing. We get baited by all this nonsense and all this drama. When we could go into spaces like MAGA comes here and they talk to you and they pierce your bubble, we should be able to go to their spaces and pierce their bubble and get in their minds and really set those conversations straight, and us bait them into conversations that matter to the working class.
I'm going to tell you something, Tony. I don't disagree with anything you just said, but they're cowards. And I'll give you a perfect example. How many times does Sean Hannity debate a liberal? I know he's had Gavin Newsom on a few times. Credit to Gavin Newsom. How many times does Mark Levin ever have a liberal or somebody that he disagrees with on his stupid Fox News show or his radio show? How many times do these right-wing conservative actually really, Jack Posobiec, how many times does he actually really debate a liberal? I know there are a few out there at times that do that, but on their TV shows, on their radio shows, they don't want to debate people that disagree with them. And I find that to be problematic. Now, going back to what you said about example, Brian Tyler Cohen and David Pakman. I think they're both, I'll focus on those two because I'm not a big Harry fan, but focus on those two. I think they're both.
Well, let me ask you, why aren't you a Harry fan? Why aren't you a Harry fan?
For a couple different reasons. I'm not a big fan because I'm not sure if there's a lot of substance in what he talks about. I don't. I'm saying
any could be a good word there. Any substance.
He's young. He's a young kid.
Here's the thing. Regardless of which of those three that we talk about, because we could go to Destiny, Hassan Piker too, because it's a different story. But Harry, Brian Tyler Cohen, and David Pakman, I'm not saying that people shouldn't listen to them. I'm not saying that there isn't an audience out there for them. But those three do not speak to the working class. They don't speak to the working class. They don't sound like the working class. They don't use language of the working class.
Understood. So Harry I don't think there's a lot of, he's a young kid, given, but he's got a large following, but I don't think there's a lot of substance in some of his conversations or debates. So let's go to David Pacman, who I do think is a very intelligent guy. I'm a bigger fan of David Pacman than maybe Brian Tyler Cohen, but I think they're both very smart people. My only criticism is this. Got to stop being so nice. And I understand that's their style. They're probably both very nice people, and I respect that. But to what you were saying, I think we have to go after it a little bit more. And again, Pac-Man could debate anybody. I think he's a very intelligent guy, but I think got to stop being so nice. And I don't speak for the left. I'm not even a Democrat. However, I think if Democrats want to start winning presidential elections again, and they only lost one, it's not like they've lost 4 in a row, but if they want to start winning again, then they have to change the game plan. And this is where I disagree with Michelle Obama. By the way, love Michelle Obama. I wish she would run for president. Highly intelligent, well-spoken, educated. Love Michelle Obama. But when they go low, we go high. I understand what she was trying to say. Okay. Don't stoop to their level. And I'm not saying we need to do that. But what I am saying is you need to get down there too in the barrels, get in the mud with them and call them out. Harris did a little bit of that. I don't think she did enough. And she's a very nice, kind person. I get it. It's not in some people's DNA. Brian Tyler Cohen seems like a nice guy, smart. David Pacman seems like a nice guy, really smart. But I just think it's time to be a little bit more aggressive. Why do I say? Because the MAGAs are very aggressive people. Now, a lot of them are dopes. A lot of people within the MAGA base are very uneducated and ill-informed. They're dopes. But they're, in my personal opinion, they're the bigger snowflakes here. They're like you mentioned, we mentioned Sebastian Gorka, right? Huge snowflake. A lot of these people on the far right, they don't want to be criticized, and listen. So that's my take on, and I know we were kind of going there a little bit of what people on the left, in my opinion, need to do a little bit more of. Stop being so damn nice. Take the gloves off.
Yeah, well, and I think to that form too is that and it's not so much that Brian Pacman or Harry Siston are too nice. It's just their style is boring. It doesn't resonate. It doesn't resonate with working class people. They look at Harry. They look at Brian. They look at David Pacman. They do not relate with them on a scale. And you're not going to see David Pacman in spaces, Brian Tyler Cohen in spaces where these people aren't going to just see them as soy boys, as if you want to say it that way. That's what MAGA would say. That, and again, it's not that their commentary is bad and that they're wrong. They are wrong a lot. They are, but it's not that they're always wrong. What I'm trying to say is that we, like you said, we need to get tough, but more importantly, we need to penetrate the bubble of the working class. The working class is not listening to us. They clearly are not. I'm going to give you an example. And the reason why I like the examples of Harry, David Pacman, and Brian Tyler Cohen is because if you look at a graph, they have some of the biggest microphones on the left.
Sure.
Now, in comparison to the microphones on the right, Brian Tyler Cohen, David Pacman, and Harry Siston together don't have the same amount of followers and the same amount of microphone that Jake Paul has. Right. Jake Paul is not into politics. He doesn't talk politics, but he absolutely influenced this election more than Harry, Brian, and David did. Now, let me give you an example. Their amplifier is so big. They have the biggest amplifier, the right wing, between Elon, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate. The list goes on and on and on of these influencers on the right. And it's mostly toxic masculinity, and it kind of couples with sports a lot. But here's the thing. Even though they have the biggest amplifier, they out-amplify us by a huge percentage. Mm-hmm. Trump barely won. Think about this for a second. Sure. If we as the left, but more importantly as the working class, abandon some of these left voices that don't really represent us in the way that they should, and they don't represent our narrative and they don't represent our messaging, if we walk away from them and we walk towards people who do sound like working class, who are working class people, who would want to have a message about kitchen table issues for the working class to welcome back in the liberal camp. Here's the thing. The right wing and Trump wouldn't have a chance, not a snowball's chance would they have against a microphone that is a little bigger and a little more efficient and a little more in your face when it comes to working class issues.
I agree. Important to note that Donald Trump, last I checked, won the popular vote by only 1.7%. It was one of the closest elections, top 3 closest elections since the 1880s. So for any of these idiots that call this a mandate, half the country still hates Donald Trump. Just about half the country that voted did not vote for Donald Trump. So if anyone out there, again, wants to suggest that this is some sort of mandate, you're an imbecile and you don't understand. Yes, did he sweep all the swing states? Yeah, but it came down to like 200,000 votes. So while you might have swept the swing states, it's kind of like if a basketball team wins a game by 2 points and then they say it was a blowout win. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But then again, these MAGA Republicans never make sense to me. Mr. Tony Michaels from the Tony Michaels podcast. It is always a pleasure having you on the show, my friend. Let's do it again sometime soon. And I got to jump on your podcast one of these days. But
you should come on. You should come on and have a conversation. You know, we can say those curse words over there on my show that we did.
I really love to swear. It's incredible that I don't do it on the air. The only time I ever swore, I'll give you this quick story. The only time I ever swore on, twice.
Okay.
So since college, I was on a college radio station. This was my first time swearing. And my co-host at the time brought up Vanilla Ice, and I used the F word in talking about Vanilla Ice, completely accidental. And then, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I couldn't control my anger when it came to a former co-host that I am so glad I don't talk to him and work with him anymore. But he said some things on the air that were extremely bigoted in nature.
Sure.
And I said, this effing guy. And I thought my microphone was off, but it wasn't.
You got caught on a hot mic is what you're saying.
I did. I thought the mic was off and it was on. But so it's happened a couple times in my life, but hopefully it won't happen again. But anyway, love to be able to say those words on your show. But anyway,
come. We're live every single weekday, Monday through Friday for 2 full hours. Just go to thetonymichaels.com. That's thetonymichaels.com, and you can find the show there. As you said, the Rush Limbaugh of the left.
Yes, I appreciate your takes, my friend, and I always appreciate it when you take the time to join us. Tony Michaels, everybody. Appreciate the time. We'll talk to you soon, Tony.